Okay, so first of all, we have learned DDL and DML, the basics. The basics as well as this is the main commands we use. Generally, we can use with a bit complex, that is fine. But those are the basic commands that we have learned on last day on top of DDL and DML. So today we'll be covering some more things just like constraint part and some more things which were left over for DDL and DML. I'll be covering those things. So any doubt or anything, whatever you have learned on the last working day, is there any doubt so far? Any confusion? If there is anything, please tell me. I hope you are having the hands-on part at your home as well. You have installed one of the software, DB software. Is there anything, any stuck point while installing the software at your side? If if that is the case, I can help you if there is any issue with the installation part as well. Okay, I believe everything is fine. Okay, so I'm directly going to MySQL Workbench. So those are the table and the commands we have learned on the last working day. And if you can remember the last stage, I just dropped the table. That is why in the database, there is no such table available over here in our Tetra training. Okay, so let me create the table once more time to have our hands-on part. Okay, so first of all, we'll be going to create the student table again, having those kind of columns, class, roll number, name. Okay, let me put age as well. Age, integer. Okay, or I can put the student ID instead of roll number because today we'll be going to learn a primary key concept. Yeah, student is created. We can see it over here. Okay, one more important concept. That thing I already showed you on the last working day. While creating any table or while doing any kind of operation on top of the table, when we are mentioning the table name over here, the things are going to be performed in the default schema database. That is Tetra schema. Suppose there is no default schema selected in your database, then you must need to include while mentioning the table name, you need to mention the table name just like schema name dot table name in this way. Okay, schema name dot table name. Okay, suppose I want to create a table student in Word schema. Let me see what are the different. Okay, student is already there. Let me check Ronnie test. Yeah, student is everywhere. Okay, fine. So let me just create a table student underscore BKP. That means student backup. In this particular schema, Ronnie underscore test. If I'm just going to execute it, by default, it should be created in Tetra schema because this is my default schema over here. Okay. But if I want a specific schema so that particular table should be only created and that's at that particular schema, then we just need to mention in this way. Schema name, that is Ronnie underscore test dot table name. Okay. This is not only for create statement, it's applicable for all kind of languages. It's especially DDL, DQL, DML, everything we can put this kind of convention. Before typing the table name, we can also include schema name. So schema name dot table name can be a representation of the table. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to create this one just to show you. It's successfully generated. Let me just check. Yeah, you can see this is the table that is just created, having those columns. Okay. After that, we have learned create statement. Yeah, all those things are fine. We have couple of things on top of alter statement as well. I think you have understood this thing. Okay. The main thing we'll be going to learn today, the constraint part. So yesterday we just go ahead with the basic things, having only data types of a particular column as well as mentioning the column length. Okay. Column length is specially required when we are declaring a varchar data type. For integer float date, it's not required. For date data type, I'll be touching it later. What is the thing? Today, let me introduce date data type as well. Okay, let me introduce date data type. First, let me introduce. So, let me create a new table. Let me drop the table and recreate it. All with the alter statement, let me create a new column called date of birth. Okay, that should be fine. So,
Want to take video? One. Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm receiving a noise. Okay. Alter table student. I'm going to alter it. Going to add a column. Add, suppose DOB is date of birth column. Having date data type DAT. Yeah, it's successfully executed. Let me just check the student table. Yes. Age is no more required. I'm just deleting age as of now. Date of birth is fine. I'm not going to calculate age as of now. So let me drop age column. Okay. Refresh it. Yes. So now how date data type work over here? I haven't showed you. There's a default format of the data data type. Just like over here, the default format should be YYYY Let me insert some data to the table. Insert into student values. We need to maintain the same order, just like class, student, name, date of birth. So class 9, student ID. Let me put some IDs over here. Suppose 234, my name, yeah, Sujay Kumar, date of birth. And let me put pending, right? It's successfully inserted. Okay. So first of all, for date data type, I put this in. This kind of quotation over here for integer as well. As I mentioned, I can put, I cannot put integer. That is totally my wish. But if it is a varchar data type, we must need to include within a quote. Okay. So this is a mandatory one. Similarly, if this is a date data type, we also need to include a colon in front of, not colon exactly, the quote, single quote, the starting and the ending. So for date and varchar, it's a mandatory to put code. For integer float, we can put, we cannot put. This is optional. Okay. I just inserted the data. Let me quickly show you the data in the table as well with the select statement. Select star from student table. Okay. I'm going to execute this statement. So you can see my data has been inserted successfully. Now I was showing you this is the date data type. You can see the data type is date. And this is very important concept. I cannot change this format. Suppose I want to change this format. I'm going to insert a new row having 10 as class. Student ID can be 456. Vipul Kumar. Let me put the same thing. Let me change the date with a different format. Okay. Let me go ahead with suppose 12th Feb, 12th Feb 19 or 2007. I'm going to execute in this manner. It's throw an error. What is the error? Incorrect date value for the column date of birth. So if I put this way, it's a string. Actually, it's not maintaining the date format because I told the default date format for MySQL database is YYYY dash MM dash DD. So if I'm not maintaining the format in this way, it will be treating this format as a varchar. But as I define my column is date data type, that is why it will be throwing error. We need to maintain the same date data type, just like 2007 02 12 means 12 Feb 2007. Now I can able to insert it. Okay, so just recall this thing. This is the default data type for MySQL. Unlike MySQL, if we have, I mean, if we have any other databases, just like Oracle, MS SQL Server, so there is, I mean, their default data type is a different one. So before operating with any kind of date function or date data type, you just need to check for each of the databases default date format because just like MySQL, you learn this is the date data type. Okay, this is the default format of date. Now you are going to insert. Suppose you are going to work in some Oracle or MySQL server. I mean MS SQL server, Microsoft SQL server. Let me show you default date format in Oracle. Let me just check. Yes. So Oracle for Oracle, this is default date format. DD hyphen mon, it should be month, but it is just like Jan, Feb in this format. Okay. For MS, let's search Microsoft SQL Server. This is the database supported by MS. Yeah, it is having a similar data type, just like MySQL. So you need to know which is the default data type, I mean date format for each of the databases. Otherwise, it will recognize the other format as string data type or varchar data type, which should be causing issue during data insertion. Okay. Okay. So just we work on top of date data type. Now let me go ahead with the constraint part. Constraint things we can declare during our DDL creation, a table creation over here. I can impose some constraint. So what is constraint actually? So what kind of constraint I can see over here? Just like, let me show you. Yes. So those are different constraint. Okay, let me go ahead with the direct examples. What are constraints and how that can be helpful. So when we are going to create this table, by default, each of the columns should be having a default constraint called null, null. That means while inserting the records, we can omit a particular column to be inserted. Let me show you with the example. Suppose I'm going to insert another record, but I do not have all the information. So insert into student. This way we can also insert. Suppose I only know two columns name or two columns data, just like class, student ID, but I do not know. Okay, name I know. Okay, but I do not know the other date of birth one. So let me I just need to put this thing only. I can also declare the insert statement in this way. Whichever columns I know the data, I can just put this thing. The specific order, what order I'm mentioning this thing over here, the specific order I need to insert the data over here as well. Okay. Pankaj Kumar. Okay. It's successfully inserted. Let me just have a select statement. So you can see, as I do not have the date of birth value for Pankaj, so this date of birth value is containing null. Null means no data, void data. So I want to say, by default, each of the column, if we forget to insert any particular data, there will be no issue because by default, each of the column is nullable. Let me show you. If I just show the DDL of the table, I'm going to right click on top of the table. We can just go ahead with table inspector as well. Table inspector. If we just go ahead to the table inspector, what we can able to see, the particular table is being stored in which location, in which format. So all about the tables, just like it's a metadata of the table. Okay, you can see it over here. Go to columns. You can see each of the column, the type, default, there is no default value. Can see nullable. Everything is nullable because by default it's nullable until and unless I can keep any constraint of not null. Okay. So you can see all the things are nullable. So I can skip any of the data value. There will be no issue. I can see the same thing in DDL tab as well. So you can see we created this thing, but we haven't put anything. So that is why you can see a null constraint they are putting by default. Okay. But if I want any column should not be contain, suppose student ID or class, those two columns cannot be null in nature. Okay. So we can impose the constraint not null. Let me just introduce this thing. Not null. Okay. So that means while inserting the record in, inserting any record in student table, I must have to put the class value. Just like it's not an optional field, it's a mandatory field. Student ID also. Let me put some not null constraint on top of this. Okay, so this is how constraint can be imposed during tables DDL declaration. Let me drop the table and recreate it. I can also impose the constraint during a alter statement execution. That is also possible. But as of now, as we are learning constraint from the beginning, so that is why I'm dropping the table and recreating the table once more time after imposing the constraint. Okay, I just dropped the table. I'm going to recreate the table again with having this not null constraint on top of class column and student ID column. Okay, it's successfully executed. Let me check over here. Over here, I cannot see any difference, but let me inspect on top of this table. Right click, table inspector. Let me go to columns. You can see class and student ID. It's nullable? No. The other columns are nullable. As mentioned, if we do not mention anything on top of the column, by default, it's nullable in nature. But this particular two column is not a nullable one. Okay. Suppose let me create a new record. Why it's not closing? Yes. Let me create a new record. I'm not putting student ID. I'm just going to insert class and name, the student. Okay. So class 10, student name is Pankaj Kumar. Let's check. I hope there is no data because I just drop it. Yeah, there is no data. I drop the table. That is why. Let me insert record within it. It's throw a error. What is the error? Student ID doesn't have a default value. So student ID is a not null constraint. The column must be having a particular value. Okay. But as we put no value to my student ID, so the error is there. Name is not a mandatory column. I can skip name, there will be no issue. But I must have to represent the student ID for a particular record. Okay. Let me just update something over here. Suppose port 36 for 26 for student ID. Let me run it. It successfully ran. Let me check the table. Yes, you can see those two things are there, but those two things are not there. That means if we impose any not null constraint, that particular columns cannot be empty while inserting any record. The things are clear to you, whatever I'm showing it over here. If there is any doubt, any stuck point, please ask me question. Okay. Any doubt is there? Or any problem is there during understanding? If my voice is not clear or anything, please tell me over here. Or you can ping me over here if that thing is understandable or not. Okay. Because I'm not getting any response. So that is why I'm thinking whether it's not an interactive one. You are not able to understand the thing.
It's all good, Satvik. It's clear.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. But if there is anything, please stop me. This is for everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sure.
Okay. Thanks. So we just learned the not null constraint. We have another constraint called unique. Unique means if we want to impose this unique one, that means unique on top of any column. I can impose this kind of thing. Let me drop this table. Okay. Let me introduce a unique on top of a particular column. So age integer. While declaring unit we need generally declare at the last line. So as age integer, it's not a last line. I am putting a comma over here. In the next line, I'm going to mention unique, and then putting which column I want to make unique, just like student ID. Student ID cannot be duplicated. So that is why I'm putting unique constraint on top of student ID. Okay. The similar, we'll be learning a primary key constraint as well. It's having the similar concept, just like unique. Okay. So I'm going to run it first. Okay. So by default, you can see when I'm assigning a unique constraint, they're also defining this thing as PK, means primary key. Actually, as I mentioned, unique and primary key is almost same. I mean, when we have not null constraint as well as unique, both of them is there, both of the quality is there in a particular column, then it will identify this thing as a primary key in MySQL database. You can see student ID int pk means primary key. You can also have a table inspector just to validate the same thing. No such thing is there. Yeah, student ID. As I make it a unique one, they have also taking this thing as a unique. Foreign keys are not there till now. Okay, you can see the DDL has been updated with the unique key as student ID. Okay, so I just ran it. Let me have some examples. Let me show you the student tables data, whether it's really maintaining the unique. Let me have some columns over here. Student ID. Let me just omit this thing. I'm going to insert all the data. 426. What was the name? Pankaj. Let me put some date. 1999 0 5 12. The date is odd, but let me just introduce it quickly. It's fine. Let me introduce another record having the same student ID. I'm going to change the class. Suppose class, okay, class 10 is fine. 426 is also, I'm just changing the student name, Malati or Malti, anything. Changing the date of birth as well. Okay, I'm going to insert the same record again. Same record means same student ID. Okay, I received an error. Data truncated for column age at row 1. What is the issue? This should not be the issue.
Yeah, its column name is age, sir, not the date of birth.
Okay, I haven't changed it. Sorry. So last time it got inserted, maybe it was not. Okay, let me introduce age only. That is fine. Okay, date of birth I have introduced during a alter statement. I can remember. That is why. Fine, no issue. So I'm going to introduce the thing. 10th class, it's 15. Age, it's fine. So last record, it was a wrong thing. Okay, let me run this. I received the error again. So what is the error now? Duplicate entry 426 for key. We already have a previous record having student ID 426 for Pankaj, I believe. Okay. For Pankaj, student ID is 426. So I cannot insert 426 again because we have a constraint on top of student ID, which is unique. Okay. This age is an absurd one because I thought that time it was a date of birth. I'll be changing that thing later. But the main thing I want to focus to see you the constraint, how it's going to be applied. Okay. So let me just update it to 427 and you can see it can be successfully inserted. Yes. Sorry, just give me some second. Yes. So if I change the student ID, there will be no issue. So this is how unique constraint can be worked. The column values cannot be duplicated. That should be storing uniqueness. Even we can add this kind of constraint directly with the alter statement. Suppose we forget to put some constraint while declaring the DDL, I mean create statement. Then we can also insert this kind of statement over here, just like alter table student, we can just put add constraint, or we can just put, okay, we can also introduce constraint in this way as well. Constraint, we can give a constraint name. Suppose I'm giving constraint name ABC. This what the constraint will be doing? It will be imposing the uniqueness on top of student ID. This kind of declaration can be there as well. Okay. So I can also put this thing over here. Copying it, pasting it over here. So during alter statement, I can also run this kind of thing. Suppose I forget to put the constraint name directly in create statement. So we can put the constraint in the alter statement as well. Similarly, just like I showed you the last working day, if we forget to mention any column name, we can create it later via alter statement. So I can impose the constraint in a alter statement too. Okay. And also put in this way. Add unique column name. Okay. So this is how it can work. The next constraint is primary key. Very, very important. Primary key and foreign key. Let me show you the concept. I think it's clear. The first 1 and 2 days we discussed on top of primary keys a lot. So let's see how we can impose a primary key constraint. It's similarly unique with a unique, unique declaration over there. How we have declared unique, similar kind of um, syntax should be there for primary key as well. Okay, let me drop the table. Okay, let me introduce primary key over here. Simply primary key. This is the keyword, just like unique. Primary space key, it's a keyword. Then on top of which particular column you need to impose a primary key, just put it. Okay, so this way you can create it. It's successfully created. Let me show you. Yes, it is a primary key, and a similar thing should be there while inserting the data. Primary key cannot be null and void, and the data should be unique in nature in primary key. The same thing we have learned in the previous example. I can show this thing over here again. Okay. We can also just like add a constraint, just like, sorry, constraint. Suppose I'm giving some constraint A, B, C, D. Then I'm creating this thing. Let me run this thing, drop and recreate it. I dropped it and going to recreate it. Yeah, this is also successfully possible. Only while imposing the constraint name, they'll be giving a constraint called ABCD. Let me show you this thing in. Constraint name is ABCD, but this constraint properties is a primary key. The backend properties of the constraint ABCD is primary key on top of student ID. I can see those things in table inspector, which is a metadata information. Okay, I think in index I can find it. The constraint name, it should be there somewhere. Indexes. No, it's not there. The constraint they're not mentioning, but it should be there. Some databases it can be there, but while dropping the constraint, I can also name the constraint. Drop constraint name I can drop. During the alter statement, I can also drop the constraint. Okay, it's like drop constraint ABCD. It will be dropping the constraint. I can impose the constraint with the alter statement. I can drop the constraint as well. But constraint, just like it's a naming convention, I cannot able to find it in metadata. It is hiding it somewhere. But this is the way to impose the constraint. Can declare the constraint over here, or we can directly declare the primary key. We can impose multiple columns as primary key with a comma separator. Suppose class and student ID, both things should be the combination, the primary key. So this way we can declare it. Okay. Let me drop the student table and recreate it. Okay, you can see primary key, primary key. Okay. Now the next concept is foreign key. For the foreign key reference, you should be another table where student ID can be a foreign key. Let me create a quick table. Suppose a teacher table. Create table, teacher. So in the teacher table, teacher ID can be a primary key. Student ID can be a foreign key. So I need to declare in this way. I'm not going to insert any other thing. So let me declare primary key is teacher ID in teacher table. Okay, in teacher table, teacher ID can be a primary key. Okay, and I can foreign key. Okay, foreign key is name, that is student ID, and from which primary table we are referring this foreign key means the student table is the primary table whose primary key student ID. That thing I also need to refer over here with the keyword called references. Table name means student, references table name within bracket the column name student ID. So while declaration of the foreign key, the syntax is a bit tough. So just like foreign key in my table, which is the foreign key student ID, but student ID is the primary key from which table I need to pull these references as well. Okay, so if we run this thing, the new teacher table should be created having a references on top of student table. There's some issue. What is the issue? Missing index constraint, teacher IV to student. Okay, class is not there. Let me drop and pull only one columns as of now. Just give me some second. There are two different columns. Let me only create the first table having student ID as the primary key and check it. Yes, let me run it once more time. Yes, now it's created. The first table, at first there are two primary keys. During the last example I showed you, I imposed two primary key constraint on top of class and student ID. So I'm taking reference from student table. I just want to have references on top of student ID only. So that is why it's throw the error at that time. But now I removed and put only one primary key, that is only student ID. Now the teacher ID is having the perfect primary key and foreign key. Okay, you can see the foreign keys over here. Okay, so teacher IBFK, this is the foreign key name they are putting, and the foreign keys references over here. Now one more thing. Suppose I want to, the particular table is having referencing this one. Okay, it's having a reference for here. So if I'm going to drop the table student now, I'm going to drop the table student. Okay, it's showing an error because there is a reference. Means the table teacher, it's depending on student table because we have a reference. Okay, that is why we cannot drop the student table now. We have a reference just like this. So I cannot drop a student table if we have this reference. So that is why we can drop the teacher first, then student. If we drop the teacher table, then there will be no reference. Now I can drop student table. There is another way with having reference we can dropping, but this is an advanced level. I'll not be going to show you now. Okay, you can see student is also dropped.
Excuse me.
If there is any referencing, then I cannot drop the primary table. If we
Excuse me, I
remove
have
the
a question.
yeah, tell me.
Why are we dropping the table?
Just to show you
Like,
actually
in what way? No. In what way the teacher table is dependent upon the student table?
yeah, as I
I don't
showed
get
that
that
while
point.
declaring the foreign key constraint, so foreign key means I'm declaring foreign key on top of student ID in teacher table. Okay. In teacher table, I'm going to create a for student ID column. And this student ID is a foreign key and it is referencing student tables student ID column. So when we are going to impose any foreign key, the foreign key must be a primary key from another table. I hope this concept is clear. So this way we have declared it. This student means this student table. Okay. So this way we are referencing one table over here. So if the both of the table exist, we cannot delete student table if there is a reference in another table. Okay. Is it clear, Kirtana?
Yes, it's clear now.
Okay. Dropping, we are just dropping just for, exercise and hands-on part. We are not,
Yeah,
as
I
of now, we
got
are
it.
dropping it
Yeah.
during your, suppose you are in a project and all. So suppose your concept should be clear or maybe interview, they can ask questions. That is why I'm showing it. Okay. Another constraint is the check, default. Those are the constraints. This will be helping us. Let me drop. Tables are already dropped, I believe. Yeah. I'm going to impose a constraint check. What check will be doing? Check will be helping us. Suppose I want a role, a particular limitation. Suppose age, there is a mistake and on top of age. So age cannot be more than, this is school. So school students age cannot be, okay, age should be always less than maybe 25. I'm putting in this one. So this kind of constraint I can put. Suppose someone mistakenly inserted some record, then they will be getting error or the row should be rejected. It's a check means a particular while inserting the data, I just ran it. It's successfully created. Let me try it with inserting some record. So the first record it's fine. Age 15. The second record I'm going to insert for Priyanka. Let me update the student ID. Suppose 428. Let me insert this thing as 30. Let's see what happened. It's showing an error because the check constraint is violated. Okay. It cannot be more than 25. It should be less than 25. So this is how check constraint can work. Okay. Some question is there. Meeting is not scheduled for 8 p.m. 8 p.m. EST. I mean, I think it's CST time format. Can you please anyone check it? I mean, the meeting, I think it's not in proper over there. So please, I mean, ask the thing in group once more time. Whoever is scheduling, maybe Trishul or anyone from admin team, they can update that part. This confusion was there in earlier session as well. Maybe it's not proper time zone they are mentioning. So please raise this thing in WhatsApp group. They'll be modifying it. Okay. So please raise this thing. I mean, the things are alternating. I mean, this is a frequent things, and I think you were affecting some other people also asking the same question few days earlier. So yes, I hope the meeting link is not. I mean, the description is not correct. So please tell them so that they can update this thing. Yes, right. Yeah, in IST timing it's fine. 6:30 a.m. IST. Correct. Okay. Okay. This is constraint. There is another constraint called default. Default constraint. I'm not sure. I need to check. Okay, let me check. I mean, the CST to IST conversion. It should be 7 p.m. Correct. So actually, please, I mean, try to coordinate with the admin, Tetra admin team, or you can put the same concern in WhatsApp group. So Trishul or maybe who are just going to give this kind of link, they'll be updating this thing. Okay. Please put the question and concern in the group as well so that they can update the link. It should be helpful for the future joinees as well. Okay. And whoever missed, I mean, have missed the session, please find the session in the recordings link. You can find it there so that there should not be any issue for you. Okay. So another constraint is there called default. I'm not going to quickly show you. Default constraint will be just you can put some default value in a particular column. Okay. So those are different constraint we can impose on
Hello.
top of.
What you're looking for, ma'am?
Yeah. And DML, yeah, we already learned it, and also we have a quick hands-on on today's session how the constraint can affect the DML part. So this thing we need to be careful during our project. There should not be 2-3 columns. A particular table can be having more than 10-15 columns over there. So we need to check that thing as well. How many columns are there? Which kind of constraints are getting imposed there? So please check those things and insert the record properly. So those are all DDLs and DMLs for today. Tomorrow we'll be going to touch DQL. Okay, the select queries and all data query language. Any doubt so far from anyone during learning our DDL and DML classes? If there is any stuck point, any doubt, please tell me here. If there is any issue from anyone? Nothing? Okay. It's clear so far. Thanks, Kirtana. Okay then. Thank you. Please try this thing. Uh, just it will not take much time. Just have a quick hands-on at your side too. I mean, you can also have a quick planning part over there at your home. The record part, as soon as the meeting will be completed after half an hour, the recording will be generated. I am going to hand over the recordings to the admin team of Tetra, and they used to upload it in YouTube link. Okay, so this is the process. But if there is any delay or anything, you can put the same thing in group. So when when it should be updated and all. Okay, then if there is any delay or anything, the process should be expedited. Okay, okay then. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.